Live from the Pitch Pad in New York City. Get ready to unleash your inner entrepreneur with Pitch Live with Amy Summers. Whether you're a seasoned entrepreneur or just dipping your toes into the Shark Tank, this is the place to be to discover how to turn your pitch into reality. Fasten your seatbelts, pitch stars, because the spotlight is on you and we are about to make success happen. On this episode of Pitch Live,
another thing that I wanted to talk to you about was the taboo topics.
Okay.
I think that is a really interesting piece of mentorship because a mentor can feel surface level. And I think when you go deeper and talk about things that are happening in the world and things that maybe you wouldn't necessarily expect to have a conversation with your boss about, it really does pull back the curtain and allow you to see somebody as a person, which is so important to you.
Get ready for Pitch Live in 3, 2, 1. Welcome to Pitch Live. I'm your host, Amy Summers, founder and president of Pitch Publicity and INICIVOX. And normally, I'm also the host here at Pitch Live, but today we have a very special edition of Pitch Live because guess what? My book, Lift, is out today. It's releasing, and I have asked my mentee, my pitch star, Victoria Najmy, to role reversal with me today. She's going to play host and interview me about this new book, and I'm so happy to have you here, Victoria.
I'm so happy to be here.
And I just found out from Victoria, I did not know this about her, but her last name, Najmy, means star. So it makes sense that not only were you the first pitch star to be on Pitch Live back in season 1, but you're here now and you get to interview me. So yeah. I'm going to turn it over to you now and let you take over.
Okay, amazing. I'm so happy to be here. I'm so excited about your book. It was such a great read, and I'm so happy for you that you've been able to make this happen. And just hearing about your experience in starting your company as an entrepreneur myself, it is really inspiring. And also just hearing in the book all of the different things about you learning to become a mentor and how you want to pass that on. It's great.
Thank you.
So my first question for you, diving right in, thinking back to the first time you thought, I'm going to write a book. I want to tell people about my journey, my company, my mentoring experience. How did that come to you and what were your thoughts at that time?
Well, true confessions, I never had writing a book on my goal list. So in fact, I was pretty emphatic about it that I was not going to write a book.
Wow.
And I started my microcast with the idea that I didn't need to write a book. I could give out all my knowledge on the microcast. So Pitch Live with Amy Summers came after that with the podcast. And I thought, this is enough. Mm-hmm. But during the celebration of the 20th anniversary of Pitch Publicity, I started getting very nostalgic about how far I had come and how far I had come with all of you, all of the pitch stars that had come through Pitch Publicity. We were celebrating. We had 2 events that year on the East Coast and West Coast. And it just, something really landed in my heart that I needed to tell this behind the scenes story of how the company made it this long. Because I have a lot of young professionals like yourself even that's always asking me, how do you get started? How do you make a company work? And for me, I never went to business school. I learned it kind of on my own. And it was a very just natural way of building a business and learning how to build a business. But I've never shared with anyone how I built it. And so when I wrote Lift, I was really writing it for you and for all the other pitch stars, which is why the book is dedicated to the pitch stars. Because as I was writing it, I was thinking to myself, if I ever had to tell them how to now run a business, you all learned how to work with me in a business. But if I ever had to tell you how to run it, I don't know, maybe someone might want to take over Pitch Publicity one day. How would I tell them that I did it? And then as I was pulling the story together, it became this beautiful story of how Pitch Publicity has always been a people first. It's been led people first. And I wanted to show people that in leadership, in building something, that you could build something that's really successful that was a people first and not a profit first business.
I love that. I love the sentiment that it's people first and not profit first. I think a lot of times, especially when we first get out into the workforce, it's a little bit of a disillusionment that you realize that companies oftentimes don't care about you when you're at the low end of the employee ranking. And I think it's so important and so great to hear from somebody who's running a company for so long that you really do care about people. I think a big theme and takeaway of the book is that mentorship is a relationship, and you speak to that a lot. Why do you think that that is so important? And how do you think that that pushed your company along?
I think it's important because mentorship it seems very intimidating now. Like we've made it into a thing. And I keep saying it's not a thing. It is at its core a relationship. And it's your relationship with your team, with your clients, with your customers. It all comes down to relationship in a business.
Yeah.
And so when you're bringing your team along, you should be leading every single day with a mentorship mindset. And I think now, and probably because hybrid and remote working conditions have pushed us a little bit further, we've made it a thing because we're not in the same office with people. So it would happen naturally, and what I call in the book even mentorship by osmosis. You would just show up at work and you would naturally get mentored. It's not happening as naturally now. And so now companies are like, okay, we have a mentorship program. We've got to set this up. I like to correlate it to a married couple that has to have a date night on Friday. And my question is, why don't they have a date night every night? Like, why is it just on Friday? But people have to do it because they have to remind themselves to be in a relationship. And I think that's why all these mentorship programs have popped up, and they're great. And I'm not discounting them. And yes, they are needed, especially if the company is devoid of any of that. But if every leader, if every manager, if every individual, even at the company, even if you're only running, you're in charge of one person. If you're leading every day with the idea that I'm going to help this person succeed, I'm going to open doors for them, I'm going to help move them along, not only will they become more confident and do better in their work, but they're going to help you succeed.
I think that that's interesting because I do feel like in a company where they have this set mentorship program, you're going to meet for coffee on this day every month, it does almost feel like checking a box as opposed to actually forming a relationship with somebody and leading with that intention all the time. And it is interesting with the work from home setup. I started my career back in 2018, and I definitely experienced the mentorship by osmosis. I got to see my boss for those first years, see how she interacted with other people, how she walked from one desk to the next, how she led a meeting in a conference room. And now with the remote work setup that we're often in now and likely will continue, you don't get that as much. It's crazy that you were ahead of the curve with your remote working. What did mentorship for you look like at that beginning when you first decided in 2010, I'm going to take this remote? And what have you learned to evolve that mentorship?
Sure. So to back up a little bit, and I talk about this in the book, but Pitch Publicity was in a physical office at one time, and I did have employees coming in and out.
Which I didn't realize, actually.
Oh, you didn't know
because
that?
When I started with you, you were remote. So I just never really even thought about what does pitch publicity look like in an office.
So the financial crisis really was hard, and I tried to survive. I was borrowing money from banks just to pay people and pay the mortgage, and slowly I had to let each of my employees go, and it was just heartbreaking for me. And so Pitch went back to just me, back in my home office where it started, and I had determined at that point I was not going to do that again. I was not going to have to make a decision about paying a mortgage or paying for somebody's livelihood. So that's around the time that you and I met up eventually, but I decided to go remote. And so it was more of a business decision to make sure that would not happen to me again, where I would have to pull someone in my office and let them go just because I couldn't afford them and the mortgage. But I have to tell you, like in the beginning, I really didn't know what I was getting into. I was remote. I had heard about this. I had heard about small businesses in Europe doing this, and it was very successful. So I thought, oh, I'm going to try that. And at first there was a lot of resistance because I couldn't get anyone to work for me because they thought it was weird. They were like, you don't have an office? So that's why I started recruiting college interns, because college students can't really leave campus, and there's not always a lot of opportunities at their campus area all the time for a bunch of internship opportunities. And so I started recruiting college students. And then I quickly learned that there was a lot of disconnect when you don't have somebody in an office. So it's funny, we were about 10 years ahead of our time doing it, and you learned how to work remotely. But during that time, I really figured out the intention I had to have with the people that worked for me on developing a relationship with them, but just intentionally making sure that they were exposed to new things, that was inviting them to go places, that they were getting that mentorship, and it wasn't just through the phone, which is what I was using in the beginning. We didn't even have Zoom then. And it's funny to me that when we had the pandemic in 2020, and then that really pushed remote and hybrid over the edge, suddenly there were all these authors coming out with all these books about how to manage people remotely and how to mentor them. And I read all these books really in preparation for my book. And I just thought to myself, they don't get it yet.
Yeah.
Like, you can't figure it out that quick. It took me several years to really figure it out. So I wanted to share that in the book because it is a process. It's not just a switch you can flip and say, okay, we're remote, you don't have to come in the office and we got it all figured out. I think companies are still struggling with how do they make their team feel connected when they're not physically there.
Yeah. I think something that I experienced, especially in the pandemic, that was at an interesting time of my career where I was at a point where I wasn't junior, but I wasn't senior. I was in this mid-level role. And I think it's easy to get left behind in that moment because you're not in front of somebody's face every day. So what's something that you do in a remote setting for the day-to-day that makes sure the people that are working with you feel like they're connected, even though the screen is between you?
A lot of times I'll do impromptu phone calls. They're not expecting them. It's not on the schedule. I feel like we have to schedule everything now.
Yeah.
I feel like you even have to schedule calls with your parents. I mean, it's gotten that bad, right?
And it almost makes it the anticipation of whatever that call is going to be is anxiety inducing.
Right. It is because you're like, oh gosh, I got to have a call with this person. But I'll just call them. And, a lot of times I'll get this, is everything okay? Like they think they're in trouble. And I'm like, you're not in trouble, but I just want to see how it's going, see how you're doing. Because that's what would happen in office. You'd be walking around, you'd pop into someone's office, you'd see them on the way to the restroom. Like you would just run into people. And so I try to do that. If I take a break from my work and go walk my dog, that's a great time for me a lot of times to just make some phone calls and see how everyone's doing. And a lot of times when I've done that, we've brainstormed great ideas. We've fixed problems I didn't even know was a problem because somebody didn't call me because they thought I was too busy. And I think we all have that mindset now. We think everyone's too busy. We don't want to interrupt them. We're too polite. But there's not that impromptu phone conversation anymore. But it's important because not only does it build communication skills because you have to think on your feet. You don't have time to really plan it out.
Yeah.
But it also promotes, I think, creativity and brainstorming when something's not so structured.
Yeah. I can imagine it allows people to let their guard down. Like they're not preparing for this phone call. They're not preparing the exact right thing to say to their boss. And so then you get to form that more personal relationship on a call like that. And with that, I think you set the tone for what your relationship looks like with the people who work with you long term, even after they're not working with you. I mean, you mention often in the book, you've had many past employees call you for other things that they're not working with you anymore, but they look to you for guidance, for advice. but you set the tone of, we can call each other and we can have a conversation. And that being so intentional, I think, is really nice to hear from somebody who's a boss and a mentor, and someone who can continue to be a mentor for the entirety of somebody's career.
Yeah, it breaks down the walls a little bit,
totally.
especially the further you get along in your career. Yeah, you're busy. Everyone's busy though.
Yeah.
But all that formality really prevents people from being accessible to you. And I would never want that. I want people to always feel like that I'm accessible to them. I can set my own boundaries, of course, but I don't want people to feel like I can't just pick up the phone and call her.
Right. And then what about what happens when somebody is nowhere to be found? Like, I think a lot of times it's easy to hide behind the screen. What do you do in a situation like that, where if somebody is not performing, or they are not getting their work done, or they're not available?
Again, I call people. I just call, because there's so much power in just the voice. And I've had that happen before, where I feel like, all right, I haven't heard from this person in like 2 hours. I sent them an assignment. I don't know where they are. So I'll just call and be like, is everything okay? And sometimes I find out that no, not everything is okay. Maybe they're sick, or they just had some bad news or something like that. And so I can be human in that moment, instead of shooting off some directive on a text or Slack message that's going to make their situation worse. I try to, and this is hard, but I really try to just come from a position that everyone is doing their best. And I think a lot of times when something's not getting done, or you haven't heard from somebody, the assumption we default to is they're doing that intentionally. And I like to assume that no one is intentionally trying to sabotage you or make you look bad. There must be something going on. So my first question is, hey, is everything okay? And if they are slacking, a lot of times they'll end up just admitting it and just saying, I'm just having an off day. And then I can give them my tips for like time management.
And that allows you to open the conversation into other aspects of their life, which is what forms that connection, learning about people's life. So I think that in your position, where you're hiring at this point mainly or only college interns, how do you handle giving them the responsibility and delegating to those people who are way more junior than somebody even who is entry level?
Well, in my situation, I haven't given myself much choice, because everybody that works for Pitch is in college, and I've structured it that way. So they're all college students. So I don't really have a choice to delegate it to someone more senior, because I am the only senior in the company. But I have a whole chapter on this. It's one of the touch points in the book, and I call it MSH delegation. So delegation MSH style. Make success happen, or as I also like to say, it makes shit happen. We got to make it happen. Especially something's been on my to-do list, or something, or I've got too much on my to-do list. Maybe it's been on there too long, or I've got too much. Sometimes I just have to let go and say, I'm going to just throw this at this person and just walk away from it. For me, it works best when I do it and I don't have a lot of time to explain. Like, maybe I'm headed out the door and I got to go to a meeting, or something's coming up, and if in the shortest amount of time that I can do it is better for me. If I give myself too much time and then I over-explain it, and then I tend to micromanage the situation, those are always worse. So I find, for me, it works best when I'm in a tight deadline situation, and I just toss it to them and see what they can do. Worst thing that happens is they don't get it as far as long as I want, but maybe they get it half of the way there and I can finish it. So I try to look at it like that. But the best thing that happens is if they do clear the goal, because I've stayed out of their way, their confidence rises so much that the next time I need them to do something, not only can they do that task, I can entrust them with even more. And so it's really, when you delegate, you have to look at it, when you're looking at it from a manager or boss perspective, it's an opportunity for you to build confidence in your team so that you can get more off your plate later, knowing that they can do it.
Okay, imagine that I am just came into director level and I now am managing people. And I'm coming to you for advice. I have somebody who is working with me and I need to delegate tasks because now I have too much to do. But for me, as this new director, it would take me so much more time to explain to the junior level employee than it would for me to just do it. What do you tell me in that point?
This is the thought that goes through my head all the time.
Yeah.
That is the thought. And then I have to put the other thought in my head is, okay, but if I do it this time, yes, this time it'll get done faster because I will not have to explain it to somebody. But in the long run, this saves me no time because I'm going to need this task done again. So one thing that you can do, and I think I mentioned this in the book as well, is that take the time to explain it to someone and record it. Get on Zoom with them, show them how to do it if you're in a remote situation, and record the whole teaching thing that you're showing them how to do it. Now it's recorded. So they can look back at it if they missed a step or they have a question. And what's really great is once it's recorded once, then the next newbie that comes in, I say, watch the recording. And now I'm wasting no time telling them how to do it again and again and again because it's recorded. So I love recording, like quick recording trainings. They don't need to be, super polished and professional. Just here's the nuts and bolts of it. I've had some of my team members, I've just asked them to do a recording. I'm like, okay, you learned how to edit a video. We're going to do more of these videos. I don't know who's going to do them next, but you record yourself on how to record, how to edit this video. And I'll use those training videos. So they're really helpful. And then that takes that thought out of my head that it's going to waste time in the future. Because I'm future-proofing my time by recording it.
And what a perfect use of time, especially in this remote setting that we're often in. I mean, I think that the being able to record yourself is that's like a hack on how to explain things to other people. When I was working with you back in, I want to say it was
2016.
16? Oh, you knew. So. I was going to say 2015. 2016 makes sense. The project that I worked on was with Danny Warfel for his event around the Florida-Georgia game. And I remember that was my first project, and you really did throw me into it. And I don't know if you know this, maybe you do. I did not like to talk on the phone, and I know that that's something that comes up a lot with people. I used to never talk on the phone, and day one, was calling 100 people. And while I don't talk on the phone, I am an overachiever. So I was like, I'm going to get over this fear of mine because I have to succeed here. But I felt how intentional it was that you gave me a project and let me run with it. And you really did delegate on a project that was relatively high profile, and something that you probably could have done yourself or could have made the decision as the owner of the company that, okay, this is going to be an event that has celebrities at it and things like that. Maybe I should just take this project on myself. And you did it and you handed it to me. And it was such a great learning opportunity for me. And then another piece of it was I got to go to the event. And I didn't realize until reading your book the intention behind bringing me to that event. In my mind, I was like, okay, this is my project. I'm going to go. I am a representative of this company. And in your mind, which I found out reading your book, you put tremendous thought into this is going to be an opportunity for my intern to experience something like this. And you jumped through hoops to get me there. And I think that was one of my biggest takeaways of how important that is. So I'd love to hear from you kind of going through your thought process at that time. How did you know it would be okay, that I was ready? And how did you know that was the moment to jump through a hoop to give somebody else that you're working with an opportunity?
Well, first of all, I just want to say that I'm so glad that Danny Werfel was the first celebrity you worked with. Just we're noting that now. Danny Werfel was Victoria's first celebrity. She's worked with many now, but he was the first. Even though I remember you saying at the event, like you wanted a picture with him to show your parents because they would be so proud. And then that made me feel so old when you said that because I went to PR class with Danny Werfel. So Danny Werfel was a client of ours, but he was also a pro bono client, which I don't know if you knew that. So we were providing services for his Desire Street Ministries for no charge. And part of the reason why I did that was because obviously it was just an exciting project. I wanted to support him. He is a fellow Gator, a fellow classmate. And the opportunity for you to experience what it was like to meet media in person because you were scheduling media to come on site for his fundraising golf event that we were having in conjunction with the Florida-Georgia game. I knew that you would gain a lot from that because being at home, calling journalists, it's a very isolating task.
Yeah.
But when you actually get to meet the media in person and see how they are, and also just see how a TV interview happens, what's required, how we had to herd Danny, not so much because Danny listens and follows directions really well, but all his other football, alumni friends, we had to herd them like cats to do interviews. And I think we even had Steve Spurrier there. So you actually had a lot of celebrities that you were working with. But to know what that's like and to do it in real time, I knew that that would bring the work that you were doing for me full circle for you, that you would really get to see that, in-person experience would make it more meaningful what you were doing just, in a home office, pitching. And that you would learn so much, not just from me, like watching me run around and how I coordinated things with clients and how I interacted with clients and guests and other people. But I knew that you would learn from other people too. They had a big fundraising event and, there's always things that you learn about networking, how to dress, as simple as it may sound, how to interact with the clients and the guests and other people. And so I knew that would be important. So that's why I made an effort to get you there because I knew that it would have an impact in not only the work you were doing for me, but it would have an impact on getting you excited about a career in this field of communications.
And it did. And now that event, what's so funny to me is I think back to that and now I've been on sets or other events that are similar to that. And it was my first experience being around.
And we got to do that together.
Yeah.
It's rewarding to me too. And that's a message I like to drive home to other leaders is that it was special for you. And it helped you in your career. But to me, to witness you and watch your eyes dart around like I talked about in the book and just see something for the first time with somebody through their eyes, it makes me excited about my profession all over again. But it gives me such tremendous joy to give that to you as a gift. And so I think it's really important for leaders to think about that. There's this whole thing about younger professionals can't go to conferences or they don't get to go to the Grammys or whatever the thing is. You have to earn your position there. But what if you took your youngest, most junior person? The impact that makes on them is huge. But the joy it's going to give you is even more valuable. And so for me, and that's why I was so descriptive in the book about your story, because I will remember that forever that you got to do that. And I got to do it with you, not your parents, not anybody else, but me. And that's our memory. And I think that's why mentorship is a mutually beneficial and rewarding, a rewarding relationship.
And at the time, I remember I was going to Jacksonville anyway for the game because a lot of people that go to the University of Florida go up for the game. And so a lot of my friends were in town too, and I was staying at a friend's house. But I got to be the one, I was the one who was like, well, I have to go work. I have to go to this press event I
have to go to the TPC Champions Club.
So I felt it was a good, just confidence boost. And I think that I think confidence goes a long way, and it's not always something that you just have. And having mentors in your life that are going to facilitate that confidence and give you the opportunities is just so important. I think what you were saying, that a lot of times more junior people aren't allowed to go to the press events, aren't allowed to go to the conferences, to the Grammys, etc. What do you think, leading up to that event for me, what do you think you did to prepare me or to prepare you to make sure that this was going to be fruitful for both of us?
Well, I think I gave you a lot of responsibility. So number one, I said that, Victoria, you can come, but we have to have press there. So it's kind of a motivator for you in a way. It's like, okay, if you did not schedule these interviews for Danny, then there was no reason for you to be there. So it was an incentive, really. It's like,
Right.
you line this up, you're coming. So that kind of gives you motivation. I think that would give anyone motivation,
Yeah. So I think that another thing that I wanted to talk to you about was the taboo topics.
Okay.
I think that that is a really interesting piece of mentorship, because I think a lot of times a mentor can feel surface level. And I think when you go deeper and talk about things that are happening in the world and things that maybe you wouldn't necessarily expect to have a conversation with your boss about, it really does pull back the curtain and allow you to see somebody as a person, which is so important to you. You did a panel back in 2020 called The Elephant in the Room. I'm curious what you learned about yourself and mentorship during that panel, and if there's anything now, if you were to host a similar panel, what would you change?
So we started the Elephant in the Room series panel during the pandemic. And what prompted me to do it was right after the George Floyd killing. And we had Blackout Tuesday, which was a big social media event. People just had a day of silence. And I just felt like, from a communication standpoint, we need to speak about this. So we lined up a panel. We involved students from HBCU, Howard University, and also students from a PWI, a predominantly white institution, which was the University of Florida. And we brought those students together with alumni from both of those schools to have these deep discussions about racism in the workplace. And the common thread with all the professionals, we had about, several different panels, but they were all from different communications industries. So we had professionals from news, we had professionals in PR and advertising, and also different career paths. So like politics and sports. And so we were really learning in all these different industries, how are they communicating this? How do they address things when things go wrong? And I have followed all the students from University of Florida and Howard University that participated in this program with us. I have followed all of them. And of course, we are now, 6 years later after that. And to this day, some of them still tell me how impressionable the advice they got from the professionals on the panel. So not even me, but for me to set this up so that they, what I call, get a moment of mentorship, has really changed. And I wish I could let all the panelists know this, and whenever I see them, I do. But I say, even that just 45 minutes they were on a panel with us, some of the things that they told these students changed the way they approached their job search, changed the way they approached which industry they were going into. It made a huge impact. So through my other company, INICIVOX, I like to do mentorship that is just virtual and quick and fast, and to show people, no matter how busy you are, if you can just take a moment, and even if it's speaking to a large group. I know you mentioned before we got rolling here that you get a lot of coffee requests, and it's hard to have time to go do that. But even if you do like a group coffee on Zoom with a bunch of people and you just dedicate, 30 minutes to them, the power and the impact that you have, you won't even know the impact that you have. But some people will get something out of that, and it's going to change their life.
Yeah, definitely. And so with that, if you were to host something like that again, is there anything you would change?
Well, we did. We hosted another one a couple years later on the topic of sexism too. And things that I changed, most of my changes were just on the technology end and behind the scenes and how I ran it to make it more accessible and easier for people to navigate from a technology perspective. But, I've really enjoyed both series and gotten a lot out of each one. So I can't think of anything like specific that I would change. I would just say that, I'm always looking for ways to make the technology better and more seamless. So it's easier for people to feel like they can come in and ask questions or anonymously ask questions if they want.
Yeah, that's amazing. It's awesome that you were able to give that space to people, because I think a lot of times it's tough to have conversations about taboo topics. You don't know what maybe somebody, especially in a workplace, is expecting you to think or feel or whatever, but it's nice to hear and to give people the opportunity to have conversations in a safe space and hear what other people are doing and how they're approaching it.
And that was the other thing too. I mean, a lot of times you have to have a longer term relationship with somebody before you ask questions like this.
Totally.
But in this setting, I was like, nope, this is a topic. The topic's racism or the topic's sexism, and we're going to just go right in here and we're going to go for it. And so I had a moderator and they got people talking. And I think just if you were just an attendee, just watching it, you're going to pick up a lot of things. But a lot of people aren't in those rooms. They're not even in the room where people are talking about these conversations. And just sharing each other's stories, that is the strongest thing that you can do. Sharing your own story about what you went through, how you would have done it differently, what you said that you shouldn't have said, whatever it is, having those honest conversations, even just somebody listening in on that, it can change your life.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so as we're wrapping up, my last question for you is, somebody is reading your book. They are doing great at their company. They are moving their way up from junior to senior to director. What do you think is the best piece of advice that they can take from your book if they were to start with one thing?
I would say it's all about relationships. So don't focus so hard on producing, even though that is the focus of every company. Production, production, production. Yes, it's important. You got to hit metrics, of course. But what's more important is the relationships you're making along the way and how you're treating people. So if you're managing one person or a team of people, be very aware of the fact that they are watching your every move. And whether you want to call yourself a mentor or not, you are a mentor. And you're either modeling a good way of doing something or you're modeling a not so good way to do something. And someday, the person that you're managing might also be your client or boss or something else. And that happens a lot. So on your way up the ladder, I would say be very aware that you're being watched. People are taking notice up and down, people over you and under you. And that there's plenty of room up there. It always seems like there isn't. There's exponentially plenty of room up there. And it's not going to hurt you and your career if you help somebody else. It's only going to help you. And that is the biggest message of the book, is that as you lift others, you also will rise. And the relationships you have with people is the most important thing, because I've been in my career long enough to know that work is a revolving door, and you never know where you're going to run into these people again, and you will run into them again. So don't burn bridges along the way. Treat people with kindness, respect, and dignity. Treat people how you would want to be treated, and that's how you should always look at all your relationships.
I love that. This was so great.
I know.
I'm so happy to have been able to chat about all of this.
Well, thank you for taking over Pitch Live today. And thank you all for joining us today. If you are interested in free mentorship, definitely go to INICIVOX.com, where you can binge as much mentorship as you want whenever you need it. And of course, I would not be a good publicist if I didn't say, please go get your copy of Lift. I really just sincerely want you to have a copy of this because I think, like Victoria says, you'll get a lot out of it. And there's pictures in here too. We didn't talk about that. Like if you don't like to read, there's comics. You can also get it on Audible. So there's a bunch of different ways you can consume it. But I would really sincerely just like to hear from you on what you think of the book. And you can do that in a review on Amazon, which is super helpful because that helps get the word out even more. But maybe you just want to call me. So you could do that too. Call me, drop me a
An
note.
impromptu call.
Let me know what you think. But thank you again, Victoria, for joining us. So continue to make success happen, make shit happen. And I have to tell one more story before we leave about Victoria. Okay. This was in her interview. This part's not in the book. So it's a little bonus for everybody. But I remember I interviewed Victoria in person. This is before I got my whole structure on how I do interviews. And we were in, I don't know, a coffee shop, I think in Gainesville. And I was interviewing her. And this bold junior in college turned to me and said, well, what I really want to do is I want to one day be a business owner like you. And I was in my head, I was thinking, are you kidding me right now? She's a junior in college and that's her goal. I was hoping she just wanted to work for me, but no, she looked straight at me. She's like, I really just want your job. And so I want to learn how you did everything that you did so I can own my own business. And now you do.
And now I do.
Now you do own your own business. I'm super proud of you.
Thank you. That's so funny that I said that. But that is what I thought.
And here you are.
That was my goal. And But I think that seeing other people, other women succeed and be entrepreneurial and start a company and learn so much and do it in such a way where you do consider people first is such an eye-opening experience for anybody. I mean, especially somebody like me who wants to own a company and then does, but even somebody who that's not their goal, who they want to be an employee, they want to feel connected to a company, they want to feel loyal to a company. I think that it's so important to just have people around you at different steps of your life that help with those goals and help you uncover different aspects of who you are. And I think that working with you during college was that for me. And what's crazy is we stayed in contact, which I think is so important and such a nice thing that you make an effort to do. Right after, we were just talking about this, but right after school, I reached out to you and you gave me other people that I should reach out to get coffee with. And we would get drinks or we would have conversations. And at least every year or every couple months, you and I have stayed in contact and had some type of conversation about where we are in life. And it's been amazing. It's been so nice to have you. And then I followed you to New York, and now I'm following in your footsteps and started my own company.
Well, you're amazing. And I think that is the crux of mentorship too, I say, is that at the end of your career, which I'm further along than you are, but as I'm getting to the end of my career, what I'm realizing is it really doesn't, the projects don't matter. I mean, I love my clients, but at the end of the day, it's not what I remember. It's not what I'm remembering. Money's great, but it comes and goes. Mm-hmm. Titles come and go. Invites to all the big events come and go. But what has stayed with me is my mentees, the people that have come up and these relationships. And this is the treasure at the end of your career that no one talks about. This is what it is. You will never, ever be alone in life if you just have that mentorship approach with everyone, because look, they keep coming back and here we are at the Pitch Pub. Well, thank you again, Victoria. You're amazing. And thank you all for joining us. Go get your lift. All right. We'll see you next time. MSH.